Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Hello and welcome. My name's Alison Stewart and I'm going to be your host for this session of Cut the Crop. And today we've got a familiar face, Erica from GLC Coordinator. Welcome, Erica.
Thanks, Alison.
So GLC's been going for a year. I can't believe that.
Fast.
It's just gone fast.
So fast, yep.
And we're going to talk today about the results of a survey that GLC did, a sort of national survey of growers asking a whole range of questions. So let's talk about what was the purpose of this survey. Why did GLC do it?
So a big part of the program, the Growers Leading Change program, is for us to essentially understand where the arable industry is at the start, and with the aim of being able to have a really targeted approach to support growers in making improvements going forward. So to be able to know that we're helping, we need to kind of know where we're starting with the program. So a big part of the Growers Leading Change project is to have a monitoring and evaluation program in place, and so we thought the best way to do that was to essentially take a stock take of where the arable industry is as we start the project, and then monitor through the middle of the project, and at the end have a final count up, I guess, essentially, and see where we've made progress. And with this data as well, we'll be able to kind of set some targets of where we want to focus our energy to be able to make sure we're helping in the right spaces.
So it's really a sort of baseline to be able to then say the programme has actually made a difference, you know. And so what are the kinds of criteria that you were using? I mean, was it to do specifically with profitability or health and well-being, or what was the range of different things that the survey covered?
So there were four main areas that we wanted to cover off, and they're the four main pillars of what the project is wanting to support across the 3 years of Growers Leading Change. So that was looking at growers' wellbeing, understanding public and government perception of the arable industry, looking at innovation and technology, and our growers' ability to make decisions for profitability.
And so tell us a bit about who actually did the survey and how the survey was done.
Yep, so the survey, it was really important to us that we had a good representation right across the arable industry. So there were a couple of different ways that we approached this. So first of all, we had like a paper-based survey that went out to 10% of all arable levy payers. Well, went out to a bit over 10%, but the target was to make sure that we had 10% of responses. So we were able to achieve that, and we made sure that it was spread across the country. So making sure that we had good representation from all 7 of our far levy regions. We also then had a smaller group that represented different demographics across the arable industry, which we completed a face-to-face interview for. So this was to get more antidote sort of data from them. So yeah, to have a conversation with the grower to get their thoughts on topics rather than it being kind of like a yes-no scale sort of rating. And we also completed that survey with a representation of the arable support industry as well, so the likes of our agronomists and trade markets and those sorts of things too.
So what did we learn? What came out of it that gives us an idea of the way forward?
Yeah, well, there was some really positive information that came out of it, and it also highlighted some areas that we can put some really targeted energy into, which is exactly what we wanted from it. So I guess first and foremost, what's exciting for me was that 92% of the respondents gain a lot of enjoyment from being arable farmers and being involved in the industry. So that's positive. That's really good for our industry. The flip side to that as well, though, was that there was a high number of people finding arable farming increasingly stressful, whether that be from climatic factors or increasing prices, access to ag chemical and compliance and those sorts of things. That's definitely an area that we want to be able to understand further. So I guess it was a feeling that there a lot of those stresses are coming from off the farm and outside of their control. So how do we help our growers gain more control or comfort around that so that they can get back to what they're wanting to be doing and enjoying farming?
Yeah. So what are we going to do with the information that we've collected as part of this survey? I mean, I guess we've got lots of stats now on 75% of growers think this, and the priority areas of concern are A, B, and C. What are we going to do with it that is going to make a difference?
For each of the kind of areas, we'll have a bit of a different approach, but what it's allowed us to do is highlight where concern is, and then we'll be able to put targets around where we want to focus them. So one of the examples of those stats is that 83% of our growers believe that having good farm records adds value to their business. But in saying that, the flip side of that was only 1/3 of the respondents actually use electronic record keeping. So there is a high number still using paper-based systems, but how do we help growers move through that to access that valuable and use that valuable information better? So that's one way that we can target the approach so far, endorses and supports production-wise. How do we help growers uptake that more and get value from that tool rather than it just being necessarily a compliance tick box tool sort of thing? So how can we help target workshops and training so that growers are able to access that?
Was there anything that came out of it that was a real surprise that you thought, oh gosh, I didn't realise that, either positive or negative?
There was some data around farm environment plans and those sorts of things. So really good stats around people having confidence that they're making good environmental decisions. So for 87% of our growers, considering environmental impacts was a big part of their decision-making process. So that's really positive and probably not a surprise. But what was concerning or a bit more surprising was how low they valued the farm environment plans. So only 57% of them had farm environment plans, but very few of them saw value in it. So they're really just doing it because they have to. So how do we help make that piece of information be really valuable to their business?
So they're almost doing it as a tick box exercise because they feel they have to, but they're not utilising the information that they've captured in the farm environment plan to add value to their business.
Yeah, exactly.
And as we're going down a path of increasingly more compliance, we've got to make sure that, that everything just doesn't become a tick box exercise. So, the question is, how do you make sure that those kinds of plans, whether it's a greenhouse gas, plan or a mitigation plan or a freshwater plan, how do you actually get them to be an integral part of adding value to the business? And that is actually really difficult to do that.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And it's probably where the survey gives us more questions than answers necessarily, but it gives us a direction to be able to start seeking more answers or working with growers in that space.
Did you get much feedback around FAR? Because obviously when you're asking questions, the answers are going to give an idea of how those respondents feel about FAR's ability to support them or the quality or relevance of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, we did. It was fantastic actually to see that FAR endorsement of new technology was really important to our growers, and that 65% of the growers that responded are regularly using FAR resources to help them make those decisions. So the information that's out there is being used by our farmers, which is really, really positive to see. Another thing that tied in with that was that 94% of growers are really happy to identify and pick up new technologies. They're wanting to use them in their businesses, but it was quite low how many felt that they had been adopting technology over the last 3 years. So that was down to 65%. So it will be interesting to understand a bit more what those handbrakes are from identifying technologies to actually implementing them in their businesses.
Well, so are you able to tease out more information around some of the the responses that you got? I mean, is that what you're going to be doing as you move forward? Because that one's really really interesting. I mean, is that because there's been very little new technology around that they can take up, or it's too expensive, or they don't have the understanding to how to be able to integrate the new technology? Like, as you say, what is the blockage to that happening?
Yeah. From the actual baseline data, so that was an anonymous survey across the whole country of our arable growers, so we won't be able to engage directly with those growers that completed the survey, but what we can do is know that across the average, it is an area of concern. So then when we're working with our arable growth groups or we're running workshops, we can be conscious that that is, on average, a challenge for them, and start to flesh out and understand how we work with that. And a lot of the arable growth groups, their challenges are about an adoption of a new technology or moving with change within the farming sector. So helping them pick up new solutions or make changes is a big part of what those arable growth groups are doing, and helping them have confidence in their decision making. So I definitely think we'll get more insight through the program with that. And to add to that, each of our arable growth groups are completing this survey separately. So we'll be able to, by the end of the program, have data around where the arable industry as an average is, their confidence is, and then also the growers that are engaging in these arable growth groups or discussion groups to grow their peer-to-peer learning, how they're feeling, if that's different at all to the industry as an average.
So are we going to use the information, like, say, 80% of growers, sort of see value in doing something? Is the idea that in 3 years' time that we're anticipating that we'll have moved the dial, that it will, instead of being 80%, it will have gone up to 90%?
Yeah, so now that we've got this baseline data, that's the next step for us, is we're setting targets for what we want to achieve over the next 3 years. And we have to be really realistic about that. There's some that we really want to push higher, but we also have to take a realistic approach that when we sent this data out, He Waka Ika Noa, the greenhouse gas reporting was fairly new, and actually still developing what the reporting requirements for that were. So some indicators where we see it higher, there may actually be more information and growers getting more of an insight as to what that means to their farming business. So there may be a drop in confidence. Yeah. And just working with how we manage that and help growers through that change is really important. So we're kind of taking each one of the targets and doing a customised approach to how we want to see that move, rather than necessarily saying we're going to have a 5% increase across all categories or something like that.
Yeah. So the survey's great. It's given us a baseline. It's given us some targets. What else has been happening with Growers Leading Change? Because obviously you would have been a little bit affected by COVID, because, a lot of extension activities had been planned over the last couple of months. But, in general, you're happy with the progress?
We are really happy with the progress. We've got a great number of arable growth groups set up across the country. We've hit the targets for the first year of the project with that, and getting really good plans in place for those groups, albeit those plans kind of had to take hold. It's very hard to work through COVID restrictions for group settings, but we're getting back on track with that now, which is really good. And then we've also got our Pathfinder farms, which we'll be announcing in the next couple of weeks, which is fantastic. So that was the other big one we wanted to tick off this year. The first year of the project was identifying 2 farms that we'll be working with over the next 3 to 5 years to work through a change journey with them and understand a challenge or a situation for that farming business, and then a strategy or a major system change that they're going to be implementing there. So, yeah, hopefully you'll have me back or one of the team back in the future to be able to discuss what's happening with the Pathfinder farms.
And I mean, I'm hoping that we'll also, at some stage in the not too distant future, be able to chat to some of the arable growth groups that have been set up to see what they're doing and the value that they've got out of being part of these groups.
Yes, definitely.
So, yeah, it's very much a watch this space. Great. Thank you very much, Erica. And thank you very much, listeners. Have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.